talk about the Cleveland Browns and Shedeur Sanders. Jimmy Haslam came out yesterday, the owner for the Cleveland Browns, and he had a lot to say about the Deshaun Watson trade. He is not placing blame on Andrew Berry. He's not placing blame on Kevin Stefanski. He's taking 100% of the blame. He came out and he said, I took a major swing, and it was a major miss on Deshaun Watson. They traded numerous first-round picks and more draft capital to bring in Deshaun Watson. And since then, the Cleveland Browns have been one of the worst teams in the NFL. And they have had one of the worst quarterback situations in the NFL. Because at the time when they made the trade to bring in Deshaun Watson, he missed all of his last season with the Houston Texans. The last time that we saw Deshaun Watson have a full on season, he started from week 1 all the way through to the last week in the NFL. He had 33 passing touchdowns and 7 interceptions. But he was done with the Houston Texans. He was done with the organization. They traded DeAndre Hopkins for David Johnson. He was upset. He got to play with Brandon Cooks as his number 1 wide receiver. He wasn't having it anymore. And at the time, the Cleveland Browns, they had a very intriguing situation with Baker Mayfield because he was an up and down quarterback for him, for the Cleveland Browns. And not all of that was on Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield did have his shortcomings. He was a turnover machine at times. When you have Hugh Jackson as your head coach in your rookie season and Freddie Kitchens as your head coach in year number 2, it's only so much that quarterback can do. Then you bring in Kevin Stefanski, you make the NFL playoffs, you win a playoff game. For the first time in a very long time, you defeat a division rival. You defeated Big Brother in the Steelers at that time. That was a great moment for the Browns. They lost against the Kansas City Chiefs. Baker Mayfield comes out. He's dealing with a shoulder injury. He's dealing with a hip injury. They ship him off to the Carolina Panthers. They bring in Deshaun Watson. They gave him a fully guaranteed contract. And remember the fully guaranteed part, because they're going to play a huge part into the Cleveland Browns right now and why they can't make a certain trade for a quarterback that could definitely help them out right now and their draft positioning. And since then, it's just been a ripple effect. They made the playoffs a year ago with Joe Flacco. He was able to come in. He was able to work things out with Kevin Stefanski, one of the best coaching jobs I've seen. But why is Joe Flacco in the game? Because Deshaun Watson has been able to stay healthy. Deshaun Watson suffered a torn ACL injury his rookie season, which is not a major injury in the NFL anymore. But Deshaun Watson was able to bounce back very well. He comes over to the Cleveland Browns. He's suspended for 12 games because of off-the-field issues. Jimmy Haslam knew the allegations that this man had, and yet he still made the move to bring him in because he didn't give a damn. He wanted a franchise quarterback. He wanted to bring in a quarterback right now that could possibly push them over the top. He misses the first 12 games of the regular season, and part of that suspension, he could not participate in training camp, no OTAs. They went with Jacoby Brissett, but the next season should be better, right? It was off to a slow start. Deshaun Watson had a very good game against the Baltimore Ravens. He tears his shoulder up. He's out for the rest of the season. So now we're talking about a quarterback that has suffered a torn ACL, a hurt shoulder. He already did not have one of the strongest arms in the NFL, but he was known for being a major playmaker. They go out there, they make the playoffs, you bring in Joe Flacco, and it all comes over to this season. Deshaun Watson comes out. He looks completely terrible yet again. In 7 games, Deshaun Watson produced 5 passing touchdowns to 3 interceptions. They never scored over 20 points with Deshaun Watson, by the way. As soon as Jameis Winston came to the lineup, you saw an offensive explosion. And Jameis Winston was a major turnover machine. But you couldn't even score over 20 points with those pieces that you gave Deshaun Watson at the time. You had Amari Cooper before you traded him to the Buffalo Bills. You have Jerry, Judy, David Njoku. David Njoku was non-existent with Deshaun Watson. Joe Flacco got him involved to the next level, and other quarterbacks did the same. But Deshaun Watson, season is ended because of a torn Achilles. They go out there, they go to check him out a couple months later. It's basically a checkup before you fully go into the offseason. He tears his Achilles yet again in rehab. That's 2 torn Achilles injuries, shoulder injury, and ACL injury. That's 4 major injuries on Deshaun Watson in his body. He was already a terrible quarterback because of the contract that he has right now. He will never be the same. And I look at the situation the Browns are in right now. I do put all the blame on Jimmy Haslam, but your quarterback options on your roster are Kenny Pickett and Deshaun Watson. And Deshaun Watson is going to miss all of this upcoming season. He has a torn Achilles. And I also want to bring up this point. Deshaun Watson may have never even wanted to play for the Cleveland Browns to begin with because he met with the Carolina Panthers. He met with the Atlanta Falcons in the offseason. The Cleveland Browns offer him the most money. He comes over to the Cleveland Browns, and they gave him a fully guaranteed contract. Once again, remember that. Seems like he doesn't care anymore. He doesn't have the same drive. He doesn't have the same motivation that he once had with the Houston Texans. He seems like he just wants to go out there and live his best life. But right now, you only have Kenny Pickett as a starting option on your roster. You have the second overall pick in the NFL draft. It brings me over to Shedeur Sanders. Now, I know that Deion Sanders has come out and he said that he doesn't want his kid to go into a terrible situation. He knows what goes on behind the scenes. If the Cleveland Browns want to take Shedeur Sanders, they should be able to take Shedeur Sanders. Deion Sanders doesn't want his kid to go into a bad situation. I understand it. That's the parent in him. He's looking out for his son. But Shedeur Sanders is the best quarterback option right now for the Cleveland Browns. Shedeur Sanders is a very good player coming over from the college level. Shedeur Sanders has been consistently good every single year in college, going over from Jackson State and coming over to Colorado. And he has dealt with some of the worst offensive line protection that I have seen a college quarterback deal with in the last 4 years. Shedeur Sanders is a baller, and to me, in my opinion, he's the most accurate quarterback in this draft class. Now, Cam Ward is better. Cam Ward has more physical tools. He has a bigger arm. Doesn't mean that he's going to be a better quarterback in the NFL. Shedeur Sanders is pro-ready. That accuracy going deep down the field, the intermediate routes, the ability to process and scan at the line of scrimmage, he's legit. Shedeur Sanders is a very good football player. Does he have the athleticism as a Josh Allen, as a Patrick Mahomes? No. Is he this generational prospect? No, he's not. But look at how many other quarterbacks that we have come out and we've said he's a generational prospect. Look at Trevor Lawrence. He hasn't had that much success in the NFL, and it's not all on Trevor Lawrence. But don't get caught in that vacuum and say, man, Shedeur Sanders, he's not 6'4". He's not able to go out there and run a 4.5. He's not able to twist and turn his body around and make amazing plays. You don't have to do that in the NFL. Shedeur Sanders, in terms of being a pocket quarterback, is one of the best options the Cleveland Browns have right now. And I look at him coming over from Colorado. He never had a consistent run game. His offensive line protection was terrible in back-to-back years with this program. And he got to run a pro system with Pat Shurmur, who is a former offensive coordinator in the NFL. And his dad has that NFL pedigree. So he knows what it takes to be successful in the NFL. You look at Shedeur Sanders in 2023, 3,230 passing yards, 27 passing touchdowns, 3 interceptions, and his season was cut short because of an injury that he suffered. It wasn't a major injury, but he got hit so much behind the line of scrimmage that they had to sit him down for a couple games in the back half of the season. So when I look at Shedeur Sanders in terms of processing, his timing, the ability to throw wide receivers open, he's elite in that territory. He doesn't have a below average arm. I know a lot of scouts are saying he doesn't have the strongest arm. It's above average. He doesn't have a noodle arm. Teddy Bridgewater coming out of college, he did not have the strongest arm. That's a quarterback that had a below average arm coming out of Louisville. You look at Shedeur Sanders, it's a lot of deep balls going down the field to Jimmy Horn. The same to Travis Hunter. He's getting it on the money. He's putting the football to where only Travis Hunter can catch it, and the same with Jimmy Horn. And you look at him his last season, the decision-making was elite. 37 passing touchdowns to 10 interceptions, 4,134 passing yards. The completion percentage was 74%. That's up from 69% from 2023. And the biggest difference that I got to see in his last season with Colorado, he was taking what the defense was giving him. A lot of those sacks was because of scat protection. You're just playing 5 wide. You're in shotgun. You're not running the football that much anyway. But your offensive line has to be elite in those moments because it's a lot of vertical routes down the field. He didn't have that much time. So a lot of the sacks that he's taking was because of the play calling and the simple fact that Shedeur Sanders, he doesn't like to throw the football away, but he will throw the football away instead of throwing interceptions. But he was throwing wide receivers open all year long. That is one elite trait that you want to see out of your quarterbacks. What did Jaden Daniels do? He threw wide receivers open at the college level at LSU. What did CJ do? He threw wide receivers open at the college level, and the same with Bryce Young. And I'm not comparing Shedeur Sanders to those quarterbacks. I'm just saying what they have in common. That's what you look for if you want a franchise quarterback. I'm not saying that Shedeur Sanders comes over, he's going to uplift the Cleveland Browns and turn them into a playoff contender out the gate. I don't think that's the case. But I do believe the Cleveland Browns would be better off with Shedeur Sanders right now than they are with Kenny Pickett and where they would be with Deshaun Watson in the future. And when I look at Shedeur Sanders, he's becoming an underrated prospect, in my opinion, because of all the hate that he's getting. I do believe he's one of the better prospects in this draft class. He's a safe quarterback. He's not going to go out there and look erratic. He doesn't have the turnover history because he's not a gunslinger. He's not going to be too aggressive pushing the football down the field. When you need him to push the football down the field, he will do that. But he's able to work in the muddy pocket. The athleticism is not there. He has great footwork inside the pocket. Outside the pocket, when things collapse, that's when you can say, okay, Shedeur Sanders may not thrive with the Cleveland Browns there. But I look at the offensive line protection with Kevin Stefanski. He's done a very good job of that with Baker Mayfield, with Deshaun Watson, with Jameis Winston. It's a read and react system. Play action bootlegs, get you behind the line of scrimmage, under center, go out there. You see the wide receiver open down the field, you take it. If he's not open, the tight end is there in the second level. If David Njoku, who is a phenomenal tight end, if he's not able to get open, right underneath Jerome Ford. And if he's not there, we have Cedric Tillman on the other side. And what is one thing that Shedeur Sanders is great at doing? Reading and reacting. It's a perfect system. Put him in that I formation. That is where Shedeur Sanders would be at his best. I think that Pat Shurmur did him a disservice by putting him in spread so much. Go out there and put him in tighter formations, run a 2 tight end set, and get him involved. And when you talk about the arm strength being a question here, how many times are you seeing quarterbacks take numerous deep shots down the field over and over again? Patrick Mahomes did not do it that much with Tyreek Hill. He did it, but it wasn't every single game. A lot of those plays were underneath. A lot of those plays are intermediate routes to Travis Kelce. Look at the Miami Dolphins right now with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. A lot of it is underneath, intermediate routes, and then they will occasionally throw the deep shot down the field. You may take 5 or 6 deep shots down the field, and a lot of that is just for the slot guy to be a decoy. Let's just be honest here. So I'm not looking at a system to where Shedeur Sanders has to go out there and he has to throw the football deep down the field 10 or 15 times a game, because if that is the game plan for a head coach, I'm questioning them and why they're coaching in the NFL. At the college level, you can get away with that because you can have a bunch of guys on the outside, track speed. But to where a lot of success is going to be made in the NFL for Shedeur Sanders is 15 to 20 yards out, the middle of the field. And that's one thing that he can do. And he can be a playmaker in terms of being inside the pocket with his pocket navigation skills, because he does have good pocket awareness and very good pocket presence. But I look at Shedeur Sanders, he will be able to thrive in this system with the Cleveland Browns with Kevin Stefanski calling plays. Jerry Jeudy is a very good wide receiver. I don't know if he's a true number 1, but he's a solid wide receiver. He did just have 1,229 receiving yards. That was the 6th most in the NFL. 4 receiving touchdowns. He averaged 14 yards a catch. The reason why I say I don't know if he's a true number 1, with the Denver Broncos, he had some solid years, but he wasn't able to fully break out just yet. A lot of that is because the quarterback situation was broken until Russell Wilson came over. And even then, he had Nathaniel Hackett calling plays in the first year with Russell Wilson. We've never seen Jerry Jeudy put up numbers like this until he came over with the Cleveland Browns. And a lot of those numbers came when he went against the Denver Broncos. I'm not saying he's a bad wide receiver. I'm just questioning if he's a true number 1. But I like Jerry Jeudy a lot. David Njoku is one of the better receiving tight ends that you can have, especially if you get him the football in crucial situations. One thing Jameis Winston did a very good job of, and the same with Joe Flacco. The offensive line pieces, you have DeJuan Jones. We'll see if he can be a very good starting tackle long term. You have Jack Conklin, right tackle position. Wyatt Teller, right guard position. Joel Bitonio, left guard. We have seen some up and down moments with the Cleveland Browns offensive line, but once again, Deshaun Watson holds onto the football for a very long time. He wasn't able to process in this system. And we got to see the offensive line protection look better with Joe Flacco. And the same with Jameis Winston. When I look at the running back position, I don't think that they will bring Nick Chubb back. They should not bring him back. He's a fan favorite. At the end of the day, this is business. This is a man that has suffered 2 brutal knee injuries, 1 in college, 1 in the NFL against the Steelers. You have Jerome Ford. He's a solid running back. Draft you a running back in the 3rd or the 4th round. You can get your bell cow there. I think a lot of good players will be there for the Cleveland Browns. And then you have him mix in things with Jerome Ford. And your defense, Myles Garrett is one of the best defensive players in all of football. I don't have to come on here and tell you that. Myles Garrett, Defensive Player of the Year. He's a great player. Myles Garrett just had 14 sacks last season, 3 forced fumbles. He requested a trade Super Bowl week. He said, I want off the Cleveland Browns. The Cleveland Browns came out and they said, we're not trading you. Andrew Berry came out and said, that's not going to happen. He comes back a couple weeks later. He said, I'm done with this team. He goes on the media run. He's saying that I want to go to a team with a younger quarterback and a better situation. The Cleveland Browns sat down with Myles Garrett and they told him this right here. Basically, we're going to pay you this much money. You're going to be a Cleveland Brown for life, whether you like it or not. And if you don't sign this contract, we're still not going to trade you. You can hold out a training camp. You can do what you want. But until you sign this contract, we have nothing else to talk about. We're not going to talk to other teams about this. We're not going to trade you because it really would not go out there and it would not help the Cleveland Browns, because if you trade into a contender, you end up with a late first round pick. You end up with late second round picks. So they signed him to a massive contract extension. So he's going to stick around. He's going to be a Cleveland Brown for life. Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah is a very good linebacker. His season was cut short because of the injury that he suffered against Derrick Henry, but he's a phenomenal player. I look at their secondary. Martin Emerson Jr. is their best covered corner. You have Greg Newsome in the nickel position. He's a very good cornerback. And then you also have Denzel Ward. Denzel Ward is a very good corner also. The concussion scared the hell out of me because he may be one concussion away from just sitting everything down. But he has been cleared by independent doctors in the past. And Denzel Ward is phenomenal. He led the league in pass deflections. He had 19 pass deflections. Grant Delpit, very good safety. So the Cleveland Browns, they have pieces. I think they are a quarterback away from possibly being in playoff contention in this division. You may call me crazy. I look at the Cincinnati Bengals. They need defensive help. The Cleveland Browns have given the Bengals a lot of problems in the past. The Cleveland Browns have given the Ravens problems in the past, and they defeated the Steelers with Jameis Winston at the quarterback position. And we just saw this team in the playoffs with Joe freaking Flacco. So I look at a young option like Shedeur Sanders. It's going to be a learning curve, but you have a solid infrastructure, a very good head coach in Kevin Stefanski. The one critique that I have with Kevin Stefanski, you need to figure out your offensive coordinator position. That's the one thing with Kevin Stefanski you have to figure out, because you had the 5th least rush attempts in the NFL from this previous year, but you had the most pass attempts in the NFL with 661. That's not going to win you football games, even with a competent quarterback. And speaking of competent quarterbacks, there's a different route that the Cleveland Browns can go. I don't have them trading the 2nd overall pick. They can go with Abdul Carter with the 2nd overall pick and pass on Shedeur Sanders. And more than likely, Shedeur Sanders may go to the Giants. If that doesn't work out, he may slide all the way down to the Steelers. But if you go with Abdul Carter, you have him, you have Myles Garrett, Terror Twins on the outside. Day one of the best pass rushing duos in all of football. But you still need a quarterback. When I was speaking that fully guaranteed money with Deshaun Watson, in the perfect world, they will go out there and trade for Kirk Cousins. And I know you're laughing, it's Kirk Cousins, but just hear me out. They can't make this trade anyway. I'm just saying hypothetically. You bring in Kirk Cousins, who got to work with Kevin Stefanski with the Minnesota Vikings. At that point in time, you don't need to take a quarterback in the first round because this is not a strong quarterback class. At that point, you could take someone like a Jackson Dart or a Tyler Shutt in the 2nd round. Then you could take Abdul Carter with the 2nd overall pick. There is a chance they could still possibly bring in Kirk Cousins, but the Falcons will have to pay 70 to 75% of that contract. The Browns can't afford that contract right now because of Deshaun Watson. And if you ask the question, what happens if they cut Deshaun Watson? You're eating a lot of dead cap space right now. And you still can't bring in Kirk Cousins. I look at Jimmy Haslam. What the hell were you thinking when you made that trade to bring in Deshaun Watson? Because an owner's job is to set everyone up for success. You did not do that in this situation. Now, hindsight, he did not know that Deshaun Watson was going to be injured. He didn't know Deshaun Watson was going to play this terribly with the Cleveland Browns, but to still give him all that money up front and he never put on a Cleveland Browns jersey is crazy to me. But that would be the ideal situation for the Browns. You bring in a veteran presence like Kirk Cousins. You go out there and then you possibly draft Abdul Carter in the 1st round. And then you go with someone like Tyler Shutt or Jackson Dart in the 2nd round. But I still have them taking Shedeur Sanders with the 2nd overall pick. You need quarterback help in the worst way possible. Shedeur Sanders may not be Jaden Daniels. He may not be CJ. But he's a major upgrade over Deshaun Watson. He's a major upgrade over DTR. And he's a huge upgrade over Kenny Pickett. But let me know in the comment section below, how do you feel about the Cleveland Browns and what should they do with the 2nd overall pick? Should they go with Abdul Carter? Should they go with Shedeur Sanders? If you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button. If you like the video, hit the like button. Most importantly, I want each and every last one of you guys stay safe, Stay positive. Thanks for the video, guys. God bless. Peace.